As the race to the White House heats up, well, it certainly seems to be heating up at the moment, doesn't it? Donald Trump, who is the leading contender for the Republican nomination, addressed a rally overnight in New Hampshire.
Now, the former president promised to, in his words, expel those horrible, horrible warmongers from government. Let's have a listen to what he said.
If you look at what's going on right now in the Middle East and Ukraine, and you add it up, and we have somebody that has no clue what the hell is going on, you're going to end up in World War III because of this. No reason for it. Millions of people will die. To me, peace through strength is not just a political slogan. It's actually a moral duty. And it's my commitment to you, the American people, but you will not have World War III. Before I even arrive at the Oval Office, shortly after we win the presidency, because it's we are going to win it, I'll have the horrible war between Russia and Ukraine settled. It should have never started, but I'll get it settled. I know them both very well. With you at my side, and you've been at my side from the beginning, we will demolish the deep state. We're going to expel those horrible, horrible warmongers from our government. They want to fight everybody. They want to kill people all over the place, places we've never heard about before. Places that want to be left alone. We will drive out the globalists. We will cast out the communists.
Well, let's talk to former presidential advisor and political commentator Steve Gill. Steve, morning to you. Really good to see you, as always. Look, it sounds good on the surface, doesn't it? You know, I promise you there will be no World War III. I promise I'll solve the situation between Russia and Ukraine. But it doesn't mean he's going to promise it in a way that Ukraine or the rest of the world would approve of.
Well, and he's already been pointing out that there were none of these wars when he was president. And I think a lot of people believe that with his strength, a lot of these moves by Putin and others would not have happened had he been president. Now, I don't think he can wave a magic wand and just quickly ease the tensions, particularly in the Middle East. But I think we can get back on a better track there. And Americans are war weary and particularly funding weary of what's been sent to Ukraine with no apparent success. Even the Ukrainian military officials and government officials are acknowledging their prospects of winning are diminishing as each day goes by, and yet they want more and more billions. And you've got some of the presidential candidates, even the Republican primary, that want to write those blank checks forever and ever.
So when he says he wants to get rid of those horrible, horrible warmongers, he basically means the Biden administration, does he?
Well, I think he means the Biden administration and making sure that some of the people that are running in the Republican primary, although he's not talking about the primary, he's going right at Biden. And to his credit, is talking more about policies, not just the foreign policies, but he's talking more about domestic policies than he is kind of going off script and just kind of name calling. His New Hampshire speech was very much kind of a call to action, both domestically and in terms of foreign policy.
He is an amazing person, though, to be able to turn something that you'd think would be very negative against him into a positive. He's now calling for some of his trial to be televised.
Well, and I think the courts will deny that, although I think some of these judges would love the TV time themselves. But it will underline his ability to say, I'm being prosecuted in the dark. They're doing this without you being able to see it. These are bogus cases, political persecutions, and they don't want you to see it. And I think that's going to be part of his pitch.
In that sense, you think he's calling for this knowing it's going to be refused? And so it's a tactic?
Oh, I think so. Although I think he'd love the TV time. And keep in mind that the Biden administration right now is absolutely freaking out. There have been attempts to run ads to attack Trump because of his legal issues, and they're backfiring in the polling. We just had really bad poll numbers for Joe Biden in the key battleground states. And then when you've got all the Palestinian protest here, as you're seeing there, it's really created a divide in the Democratic Party. And he's trying to thread the needle, Biden, of keeping his anti-Hamas, pro-Israel, pro-Jewish support, and at the same time not alienate the Palestinian pro-Hamas protesters that we're seeing, particularly in some key battleground states that are putting Biden at further risk. Biden got about 70% of the Muslim vote 4 years ago. Right now, some polls are showing him only tracking with about a 20% approval rating in those demographics. And in some key battleground states, that almost makes it impossible for him to win re-election.
What is the timetable now? When do we actually hear which candidate has been chosen for what party?
You'll start seeing some elections. I think we've got the Iowa caucuses in January, and then the New Hampshire primary, which is where President Trump was speaking. So really, in January and February, you're going to see this thing close down. But in the meantime, you've got some of these states where you have to qualify to get on the ballot coming to a close, and there are those thinking that Joe Biden, anybody opposing him, has to get on the ballot if they're going to challenge him in a primary immediately. In order to prevent him from just sort of getting all the delegates and being the only guy on the ballot. But you've got a lot of third-party candidates that are starting to get on ballots across the country. And if third-party candidates are running with both Biden and Trump on the ballot as Republicans and Democrats, that may pull off just enough votes from Joe Biden to ensure a Trump victory.
Yeah. Essentially, though, we're looking at a race of two old men. What does that mean for the future of America? Well, it's a fair point, though, isn't it?
It is, and we're all going to get there. Hopefully, we'll get there with more cognitive ability than Biden and more self-control than Donald Trump. But I do think that it's going to mean a roller coaster ride. I'm going to be on a lot with you guys trying to explain it while I try to figure it out. Frankly, the whole political process in America right now is even more confusing than figuring out how to turn your palm without twisting your wrist.
Yeah.
Actually, given the fact that those two candidates, if it ends up being a race between them, are quite old, it becomes very important as to who their running mates and therefore one day maybe their vice president may be. Are there any interesting candidates for those jobs?
You know, I think for Joe Biden, it would be almost impossible for him to dump Kamala Harris without creating a firestorm of controversy. Particularly since she's an African-American woman. But at the same time, there are those that are still suspect that Joe Biden will not ultimately be the nominee, that he will step aside for health reasons. And there are beliefs that you get to the Democratic convention, he has all the delegates aligned with him, and he can simply resign and pass his delegates to whoever he wants, which would be picking a Democrat nominee without anybody voting for them. That would be an issue for them. And then on Donald Trump's side, I think it's going to be interesting to see if he is in fact the nominee, who he picks as a vice president. The real political strategy is pick somebody who will do no harm. You don't usually win a race because of who your VP pick is, but when you've got very elderly people running, again, whether it's Biden or Trump, who that VP is, particularly with the viability of health issues for either candidate down the stretch, makes it even more important.